Hi, I'm Greg LaBlanc, and I'm here at the Haas School of Business with Stephen McKeon, who is Associate Professor of Finance at the Lundquist School of Business at the University of Oregon. Welcome, Stephen.
Thanks for having me, Greg.
So, look, we're looking at a new technology. We're looking at a new industry. The United States is known for the complexity of its financial rules and regulations. I mean, we've got the SEC, we've got the CFTC, we've got the OCC, we've got FinCEN, right? We've got the FTC. You know, that gives rise to regulatory arbitrage, but it also, on the other hand, means that it's very, very difficult to find kind of an unregulated niche within this space. What's the logic behind all of this complexity?
Yeah, so I kind of think of regulation as a matrix. So you know, along one axis you've got all the different groups you mentioned, right? So if it's a financial instrument, you've got the SEC and CFTC. If it's a product, you've got the FTC. You know, the IRS, of course, is involved with tax regulation. And then on the other axis, you've got state level, national level, you know, global, so lots of different national jurisdictions around the world. And each of those jurisdictions kind of has some version of those different sort of categories of regulators. And so it becomes a very large web, where, as you said, eventually it's the case that essentially everything is covered, right? There is no project that's not going to be regulated in some way, or that some regulator thinks they have jurisdiction over. The problem is that it's not even clear sometimes between different regulators who has jurisdiction. So in the early days, it was very unclear, like, would Bitcoin be regulated by the SEC? Would it be regulated by the CFTC? It's now clear that it's the latter. But it sometimes takes time to figure out who's going to be regulating what. And even if you don't apply to either one of those, as you said, the FTC might cover kind of the rest of the gap in the market.
Okay, so I think a lot of us in the finance sector think that you know, everything's going to be tokenized. We're going to be able to trade everything from currencies all the way up to you know, big pieces of infrastructure and real estate using some kind of tokenized asset or tokenized security. How big will this space get, and how quickly will we see adoption of tokenization? And you know, what kinds of infrastructure will we need, and who's going to control it? Most interestingly, you know.
Right. Yeah. So tokenized securities have gained a lot of steam, particularly over the last 12 to 18 months. I think the first thing that people realized was that you need some sort of a compliance layer that you can build with smart contracts, and there's several groups that are doing that. I advise Harbor, for example. I'm based right here in the Bay Area. And what Harbor's platform is doing is that, say that we tokenize a building. And by tokenize, what I'm really describing is we're just creating a different digital wrapper for the underlying security. Right? And so instead of trading this on the New York Stock Exchange, the way a REIT might trade, a public REIT, we're going to put this different digital wrap around it, which is going to really reduce a lot of frictions to trade, because now we can automate a lot of the compliance. So say this is an asset where we need to be accredited investors. Well, when I sell you some of these tokens that represent ownership on a portion of a building, it's going to ping Harbor's regulator service, and it's going to make sure that my wallet and your wallet both are registered to accredited investors. And it's all happening in the background, right? You and I don't even really see that, or it doesn't create that much latency. But if it turns out that, you know, I'm selling this to someone and that person's not accredited, that regulator service can stop the trade. All right, so the SEC should be really in favor of this, because in a sense, it's going to make their job easier by automating a lot of the types of enforcement that often is very cumbersome for them to enforce. And it's going to make sure that compliance is maintained all the way throughout the system as these things trade. So we think we're going to see assets, real estate. We've already seen venture capital funds. These are things that are generally pretty illiquid. And so the idea is that you can increase the liquidity, at least incrementally, on some of these assets by creating this digital wrapper that allows them to trade more freely.
Well, thank you, Stephen, for coming in. We really appreciate you sharing your thoughts with us.
Absolutely. I enjoyed it. Thanks.